What if your customers are trying to find your business online, but instead of finding you, they find your competitors? Now, more than ever, it's time to make sure you have the right SEO to make your business stand out online. Welcome to Go Mind Your Business with Terry Bork, presented by Extreme Marketing Concepts, putting your business in front of the hungry herd of buyers who are looking for you right now. Extreme Marketing Concepts, helping you drive more traffic, dominate the market, and crush your competition. And now, here's Terry.
Hello, everybody. This is Terry Bork. Welcome back for another edition of Go Mind Your Business on All of Your Business Radio. So glad to have everybody with us here today. Today, I have a very special guest who I'm excited to introduce all of you to. His name is Keithel Chauncey. Welcome, Keithel.
Thank you. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, great. Keithel is an attorney up in Lutz who specializes in business law, or practices, I guess is the proper word.
Either way is fine.
Got it. Okay, great. So we're going to get to hear all about Keithel and how he can help you in your business and in just a few minutes. Before we get going, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Extreme Marketing Concepts, for sponsoring our program today. If you're looking to put your business in front of the hungry herd of buyers who are looking for your product or service, be sure to give them a shout out at 813-863-1452. So Keithel, let me share a little bit with our listeners, a little bit about you. You attended the University of South Florida from 2001 to 2005. And you graduated from the honors program with a bachelor's degree in accounting, finance, international business, and business administration. And you minored in Spanish and economics. And you received a certification in Latin American and Caribbean studies. In 2006, you passed the Certified Public Accountant exam, and you became a licensed CPA in Virginia. You then went on to graduate from Stetson College of Law, and you passed the Florida Bar exam in 2009. Then in 2010, you completed your Master of Business Administration at USF. My goodness, that's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, go Bulls.
Yeah, okay. Keithel is also a founding partner at Fresh Legal Perspective, PL, where he draws on his education and experience to help his clients with their legal needs so they can focus on running their company. He's worked with a variety of companies ranging from assisting in the planning stages to restructuring existing organizations. And Keithel's key to success is understanding his clients' unique needs and working closely with them to create plans custom tailored to meet their varied needs. Again, Keithel, welcome to our program. I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the business law area. What exactly does that encompass when someone says, I'm a business law attorney?
Honestly, it kind of depends on what type of business they're in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, each business is going to have very specific needs, and depending on which stage of the business they're in, their needs are going to change over time.
Okay.
So when someone says a business law attorney, it could mean a variety of different things.
Got it. Okay. So it can be anybody who says, I think I'd like to do this, to somebody who says, we're in a business and we need to do that.
Yeah, so initially, I think I'd like to do this is usually more in the startup phases. So their particular needs are usually wondering, what type of structure am I choosing? What's the tax consequences of that?
Right.
Do I need to do anything specific when I'm hiring or getting a license?
Got it.
So there's a lot that goes on in the formation stages, but once we get those set up properly, those needs disappear and they move to the next stage of business development.
Got it. Okay, great. And I'm excited because I know we're going to spend some time today and really talk about the different types of businesses that are out there, the best way to set them up maybe for each particular organization and then move forward. And I do know that it's always, it's great to listen to us on the talking today. However, if you are starting a business, I do recommend you give Keithel a call because he can best guide you in all of your business needs.
Yeah, we only have a limited amount of time and there's a lot of different topics, so it's always good to get person-to-person input.
Cool. So if you're looking to, open your doors and hang your sign, or you have an established business, I recommend you give Keithel a call. He's amazing. You can reach him at 813-448-1042. Okay, so let's kind of talk about the different types of businesses, Keithel. I know there's things called partnerships and sole proprietorships and LLCs. Can you kind of tell us a little bit what those things are?
Yeah, when someone comes in and they're looking to start a business, they've heard all those words thrown around. They've heard, are you a sole proprietor? Are you a partnership? What about LLC? That's the new kid on the block. And then there's the corporation. So as far as what we usually go through with people for time's sake, it's usually an LLC or corporation that they're looking for because those have a liability shield that helps to protect their personal assets from business liabilities that may come up.
Okay, great. Is there one that's better than the other at all in a business?
It's going to depend on each person's individual needs. Most people's favorite tends to be an LLC because you can strip out some of the formalities. A corporation has the big board of directors and a lot of formalities associated with electing them and running board meetings. Whereas an LLC, you can make it so there's no required annual meeting in the operating agreement for the organization, and the members can just get together casually and discuss what the decisions that need to be made are and go ahead and make those decisions.
Got it. Okay. So does it depend on how large the company is that would best determine?
Occasionally, the size of the business really comes into play. If it's a company that wants to go public at some point, most exchanges do use stock, so it's often beneficial to start it off as a corporation that has stock if they plan on one day going public with it.
Okay, great. Great. I hear a lot of talk on the internet and in the news about going to the internet and forming your own LLC or your own company. Is that in my best interest as somebody who's looking to start a company up, or why do I need you?
I was going to say, if you're going to the internet to find it, the internet delivers custom tailored plans for a different business.
Okay.
If your business happens to fit the plan that fit another business, it might work very well for you, or it might be the opposite of what you're looking for. And that's kind of what I tell people is the plans on the internet are good, but they aren't custom tailored to your business and your needs. If you want one custom tailored to your needs, you need someone to go through and talk about your business and understand what your business is, where it's going, and what your personal financial situation calls for.
Okay, I got it. Okay. So we're talking about LLCs right now in particular, or can we talk about LLCs right now? Okay, great. You talked about various strategies and stuff for setting up an LLC. Can you elaborate on those a little bit more?
The nice thing about an LLC is when you're working with a professional, they can turn an LLC into a lot of different structures. I mean, an LLC can look a lot like a partnership and be taxed like a partnership, or it can be set up with units that work a lot like stock, and you can put a board in place that more or less makes the decision like a board of directors. So there's a whole lot of flexibility, and working with a professional, they can turn it into almost any different type of organization, short of the publicly traded company. That one arguably can be done. It's just a little bit more normal to do it through a corporation.
Okay, great. LLC sounds like there's so much that you can do with them, and they can work for a wide variety of businesses. Is there a downside to having an LLC?
There's a couple pitfalls that can be in place. With an LLC, you're in and you owe a duty a lot like a partnership to the people you're working with. You can't go out and compete against the LLC. You owe what's called a fiduciary duty to the other members.
Okay.
With that fiduciary duty in place, sometimes business issues may arise and you say, well, I want to go my own way and do my own business. But with an LLC, if it's not written into your operating agreement, you can't just disassociate from the LLC and go do your own thing. So you can literally be trapped in a business that you don't want to be part of.
I see.
And I've worked with business owners who want out, and effectively they have to purchase their way out of a company that they feel is not of any value to them.
Okay. So really, when you want to make changes or start or do anything with some sort of business, it's best not to go it alone so you can get the right advice.
Yeah, it's usually a good idea to just get it formed correctly from the start. If you form it correctly at the start, you can avoid a whole lot of complications later on in the process.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's say our business is going along really well. We've set it up. We've got our LLC or incorporation rolling along, and it's time to grow our business. Can you talk to us about how we go about hiring employees or independent contractors? Which is better? What do we need to do there?
Yeah, that's the first question that usually comes up when someone starts discussing it. They say, well, I'm looking at hiring people. Am I hiring an employee or am I hiring an independent contractor? And honestly, the answer is it depends on what your needs for the situation are and whether an independent contractor will fit the vision you have of your company. Independent contractors are usually the preferred way to go because you can avoid paying some of the employment taxes, the FICA taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and that does save some money on the long view.
Right.
And at the same time, with an independent contractor, they're responsible for carrying their own insurance, and if they're driving around, typically it's their own insurance that governs what goes on with their vehicle.
Okay.
And all this is talking in a very general sense.
Sure,
the very
sure.
specifics of any circumstance will change the effective conclusion.
Got it.
But yeah, if you can get an independent contractor, you can limit liability. If, say, someone's driving around on your behalf and is in a car accident, it's likely the person's going to sue your company as well if they were driving on behalf of your company. Whereas if they're an independent contractor driving on behalf of their company, it may help you limit your potential liability from that.
I see. Okay, great. So the best way to know the right type of person to hire is really to sit down with a business law attorney to understand how it's impacting on your business and what the best thing for you to do is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of statutory requirements that say if a person's treated this way, if you have a certain level of control over what the person does, then they are an employee and you don't get to categorize them as something other than an employee. So statute does put some restrictions on your ability to say what type of person is in place.
Okay, I got it. If you're just joining us, I'm Terry Borg with Extreme Marketing Concepts here on Go Mind Your Business, and my special guest today is Keithel Chauncey with Fresh Legal Perspective. Check out Keithel's website by visiting www.businesslawyertampa.com. He's got a lot of information on his website that will help answer any questions that you might have. Keithel, let's see. What can we talk about? Running a business often requires so many contracts. What should a business owner keep in mind when he starts setting up lots of contracts?
I get the question a lot about, okay, what should I look for in this? Honestly, there's a lot of the different parts of a contract that are important. In fact, if it's not important, it probably wouldn't be there.
Right.
So trying to categorize which one's the most important is difficult, but the one I usually say make sure it's there is what's called a forum or venue selection clause. And that says if you're contracting with someone who's in the state of Michigan and you're in the state of Florida, you can say, well, if litigation arises over this or if we have a dispute, we pick the venue in Tampa, Florida, which is a real benefit to the client of mine who's located in Tampa, Florida, because their accountants here, their attorneys here, and it doesn't require a hotel room and extensive travel to do the litigation and to defend themselves. Instead, they can do it on their home turf and keep the cost to a minimum while the person they're litigating with has to either hire attorneys down here or pay for their attorneys to travel down here. And that really deters the potential litigant from suing.
Got it.
So that's a really interesting clause that is relatively easy for a client to look for in a contract and say, okay, well, I see the venue selection and it's Tampa, Florida.
Right, got it.
So that one's a pretty easy one for me to say, look for that one.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, some of the other ones have a lot more legalese behind them.
Sure.
And it's a little bit harder to pick out the significance of them.
Okay, great. A lot of, for myself with Extreme Marketing Concepts, I work specifically with contracts with my clients for our term of relationship. And I know that you were instrumental in helping us get that all set up. Is that some stuff that you can help other people in length of term contracts, or what specifically Company A is going to do for Company B, or is it all business to business, or are there other type of contracts that people set up for things like that?
Yeah, there's all sorts of contracts. And usually what I tell my client is come to me with a vision of what you want. The legal tools are there to make it happen. I just need to know what your vision is. That way we can incorporate it.
I see.
And as they discuss their vision, I'll try and point out things that may also be pertinent that I've seen before. Someone will say, oh, I want to enter this agreement with an independent contractor. And if they don't mention non-disclosure or non-compete, occasionally I'll bring it up at that time and say, have you thought through this? Is that something you're interested in?
Right.
And sometimes they say, yes, that's perfect. And other times they say, I haven't thought of it. It's really rare for someone to say, no, I don't want to non-compete. I want to let this person compete with me using my secrets.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever heard someone give that response that, yeah, let them go and compete with me. So
Sure.
it almost always gets incorporated in somewhere.
Right. I got that. Or if you want to limit 6 months or a year, because you can't necessarily stop somebody from being in the same field if that's the field that they're in. But
yeah, there's definite restrictions that you're allowed to say, okay, you can't compete with me for 6 months, 1 year. 2 years, what have you, and then it's a geographic area as well that you'll define.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can't say that, say someone's working with me at the law firm, I can't do a non-compete that says they can't go to China and practice law. That
Got it.
doesn't make sense. I don't speak Chinese.
Right. I hear you. Okay. And then non-disclosure is also the same type of thing where, you know, if you, I'm assuming it's non-disclosure to your staff only.
Occasionally it's staff, but if you're working with an independent contractor and you're disclosing details of a client that you're working on mutually with them, you may not want them disclosing those details to other parties or taking those details and using them to their own ends.
Got it.
So it can be for your employees to keep them from disclosing information, or for independent contractors who you don't want going out and discussing information for one of your clients that they're working on for you.
Got it. And I can see that there could be some areas that are gray, and you know, you probably wouldn't want to go to Staples and get a packaged contract kit and modify that for your own use, but really sitting down with someone like yourself to really make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted so that you're not put in a situation where you don't want to be is important.
Exactly. And yeah,
Got
I'm
it.
thinking Staples isn't even so bold on that particular one. Those are really,
Okay.
those are really, really custom tailored. So yeah,
Okay,
if Staples,
Or the internet or wherever. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, the ones on the internet are usually custom tailored to a different business, a different industry all around, a different geographic area, and a different time span. So yeah, there's so many moving parts on those that
Got
it's very,
it.
very important to sit down and get one that fits the exact situation you're going to be in.
Sweet. Okay, good. It's the best way to protect yourself is to speak with an attorney much like Keith Chauncey. And you can give him a call at 813-448-1042. You know, Keith, sometimes businesses, they don't go according to plan. You know, we all start out with the best of intentions and something happens there and there's business disputes. How do you handle something like a business dispute with business owners?
Well, I'll tell you about one of my more recent clients. I'm disguising the names and
That's
the
fine.
type of business, but we'll call it a music shop. And what
Okay.
ended up happening was the business owner, one of the two, came to me and said, well, I'm having an issue with my partner and we really don't agree. We're having some issues. I need to buy him out ASAP because this is going to get bad soon.
Sure.
And what ended up happening was between the time he called me and literally 2 days later, the other partner had filed a repeat violence injunction against him,
Oh my goodness.
which is more or less a restraining order.
Okay.
And then in that time period, we'll call it bad partner in this case, or the other side, got a U-Haul truck, came in and took all the music equipment out of the business.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And hid it.
Hit it.
Yeah, literally took it away and hid the equipment. So all of a sudden my client's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I said, well, we've got to deal with it in the legal process. We're going to do this the right way. That way later on, we know we can support that we've done everything right. So we went to the hearing for the repeat violence injunction, got that taken off. And then we went into the business place now that he was allowed back in the area around his former partner,
Right.
took an inventory, found out what was missing, and then filed with the court system to say, we want to dissolve this company, and here's the assets that we feel like need to be found to properly dissolve this.
Got it.
So my client started the process of dissolving the company, and eventually he did get a tip from a mutual friend that said, here's where all your equipment is. We know you're going through the dissolution process. So we know you need to get in here and sell off that equipment so you can pay all the bills and close down the company properly.
Right.
So we ended up going in and getting the equipment back near
Oh,
the
that's
end.
good.
And we kept perfect records of everything. So if anything came up in court, we could say, no, we've done it the right way. We've gone through the judicial process. Here's the accounting records. And my guy looks good all the way through the process. Whereas the other side, it was really difficult for them to go into court and say, well, here's what I did. I got a repeat violence injunction, got a
Right.
U-Haul, and took everything.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah, that's probably the most interesting one. And yeah, it's important to stick to the legal process just so when you do go in front of the judge eventually, you can say, keep your head held high and say, I did this the right way.
Got it. Okay. Is there any way to avoid disputes in business relationships?
There's no way to avoid conflict in a business, but dispute you can get around partially by having the documents in place that decide the answer to the conflict in advance.
Got it.
So if it's something where you say, okay, someone wants out, if you have a buy-sell agreement in place that places the value on the business at X dollars, say $500,000, and you know what the value is going to be, all you have to do is go in and say, we aren't getting along, we have a conflict, I'm out. And the answer is you get, say, a promissory note that's paid over 5 years at $100,000 a year or something like that. So everything's decided, and while there is conflict, it doesn't really turn into a full-blown dispute because you've already settled it in advance.
Okay. Got it. Can you just go back for a quick moment? You brought up something called a buy-sell agreement. What is that?
A buy-sell agreement's sometimes referred to as a agreement between the shareholders or a shareholders agreement, and it serves lots of different purposes. A lot of people will call it addressing the Ds, which is if a partner dies, if a partner becomes disabled, if a partner gets divorced, or if a partner has debt issues. So there's the different Ds, and this applies to both LLCs and corporations. You can have shareholder agreements or member agreements in either setup.
Right.
So what it does is say, if you have a partner in your business, you like your partner. They know what they're doing. They're good at the job. You have no issue in the world. But at the same time, maybe you don't like their children. Maybe they have a lot of children. And if your partner dies, all of a sudden you have those 5 children all coming in and taking over half your business,
Right.
who have no experience in the field and are really not going to be all that beneficial to your business model and probably cause more conflict than you want.
Right.
So what a death portion of the buy-sell agreement does is say, in the case that a partner dies, we'll have, oftentimes these are funded with life insurance, a life insurance policy that pays the family for that business interest. And that way the business interest stays with the other partner who wants to run the business. So effectively it addresses the conflict before it ever arises.
Got it.
It says, you're getting bought out if you die, and just to make sure your family's paid full value, we have this underlying insurance policy that's in place to cover that. So it's a really, really good, I'm not going to say a full fix, but it's a good partial fix for what happens if your partner passes away.
Okay. Awesome. Now, I know I heard you say in your bio that you're a presenter at the Non-For-Profit Leadership Center down off West Shore in Tampa.
Yes.
What kind of classes do you teach there?
Over there, I teach the conflict of interest class as well as the financial oversight class.
Cool. Can you tell me a little bit about what you talk about in your conflict of interest class?
Well, the special thing about nonprofits is their nonprofit status. And the government doesn't like if there's a conflict of interest where your board's receiving compensation or people making the decision within the nonprofit are making a profit somewhere within that organization. So what it does is say, okay, if there's a conflict of interest where one of your board members or one of your officers stands to make a profit that's related to another company they're running, or one of their family members stands to make a profit, well, we need to make sure we go through and vet the whole process. Make sure that it's documented, make sure that other potential sources for that business or sources for that material are analyzed. So in the conflict of interest, we identify the person who has the conflict, take that piece out of the decision-making process, put all the options on the table, and let the remaining board actually decide in an unbiased manner. Say, okay, we understand there's a conflict, and we document the whole process saying, here's the other choices we have, and here's why we selected that decision.
I see.
Without bringing the person who's conflicted into the process at any point. And in that way, it helps to demonstrate to the Internal Revenue Service or anyone who's going back and auditing the books that this was done the right way, that we aren't taking advantage of our nonprofit status to help benefit our officers. We're operating this nonprofit for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the people we're working for, and what our mission says we're here to do. So by keeping the proper documentation, you keep your nonprofit status, you keep a better image in the public, and you just keep everything on the up and up. So I help teach organizations how to do that, and occasionally I'll work as the attorney on those cases to make sure everything's documented and all the steps in the process are followed.
Okay, great. So it just doesn't limit you to just teaching at the center. You're actually able to assist maybe the folks that are taking the class should they have any questions along the way.
Yeah, and it definitely comes up very, very regularly with any organization, but especially nonprofits, because with a for-profit, I mean, that's part of what the business goal is, and there's no excess benefit that you're going to get by giving away some of your money to one of your family members.
Got it.
With a nonprofit, it's not your money to be giving away. It's the general public or the people who are being served by your mission.
Okay, great. Does the same type of strategies that you teach there apply to regular businesses who are for profit, or is it really specifically for nonprofit groups?
The class is specifically for nonprofit groups. It's the Nonprofit Leadership Center of Tampa. It's an amazing organization for the teaching, and everything there is tailored towards the nonprofits.
Okay.
The conflict of interest does apply when you get to companies that have boards of directors that are making decisions for a larger organization, because with the board, it's not necessarily their money either. It's the shareholders of the company's money.
I got that.
So yeah, occasionally conflicts of interest do come up where the board will have a family member who's bidding on a contract for that organization. And we have to say, okay, well, for-profit board member, we need to take you out of this decision-making process so that the shareholders don't feel like you gave them the raw end of that deal.
Got it.
And
Okay.
same documentation idea in a similar process overall, but for-profits definitely can use that.
Okay. I know that a lot of people want to organize themselves to benefit the community. Is forming a non-for-profit as difficult as it sounds?
It can be a very time-consuming process. I mean, going through and learning all the different steps to it can take a vast amount of time, and seeing a professional can speed up the process and help you get to go faster. Because the more time you spend resubmitting applications because you missed a piece or because you need to clarify a piece means less time that the organization is out there taking care of their mission.
Okay.
So oftentimes it does take a long time to get an application through, but that can be sped up by getting a professional on your side to assist with that process.
Okay, great. We're speaking with Keith Chauncey of Fresh Legal Perspective. If you have some questions about forming a non-for-profit or a for-profit organization, you can check out their website by going to www.businesslawyertampa.com. Keith, your bio also says that you teach Tax 1 at USF. What's the most common type of audit problem that a business owner sees?
Yeah, I do work as an adjunct at USF, and the most common type that a business owner sees, most recently, it's been the Florida Department of Revenue I've been seeing a lot of.
Really?
Yeah, their sales tax audit team seems to be really busy lately auditing the sales tax returns of convenience stores, car dealerships. I mean, the places that you'd see a lot of volume going through, I'm seeing a lot more audits.
Okay.
And it kind of makes sense given that the state does need to find revenue wherever they can. And if there's revenue being left on the table, then they're going to look for it there first.
Okay.
So I see a lot of the small businesses being audited, and occasionally it's a completely legit audit and those expenses or those liabilities weren't paid by the business owner. And occasionally it's just a misunderstanding where the Florida Department of Revenue is using national statistics and applying them on a local level where, say, the profit margins are lower than on the national level. So it gives the department the idea that this business owner is making more money than they are not paying us. Whereas the business owner is literally selling things barely at a profit and not making nearly the money that the department thinks they are.
Okay, great. So I guess Tax 1 is necessary for even a small business owner who really wants to know the little things that they can do to protect themselves, not necessarily take it as a college class, but to help them with, what they need to do within their company.
It's a really good thing to know. Tax 1 at USF is the individual level, Tax 2 is the business. So the business one would be a really good one for business owners to know, but they're also individuals, so it works for them on an individual level as well.
Okay, great. Right, especially if you have an LLC. I know that you can put a lot of stuff through your LLC as long as you don't, I think it's called commingle your money, and you keep your business with your business and your person with your person, but where's that line? Yeah,
it's really important to try to keep everything separate that needs to be separate. With an LLC especially, it can be called it can be used as a disregarded entity if there's only one person in the LLC. And that means that the income from the LLC does flow through to your personal return. It'll be on the Schedule C of your personal return. So people will say, well, why do I need to worry about commingling or keeping things separate when it's all going to the same return?
Right.
But first off, it's easier to keep records if you have a separate bank account and here's my business expenses, here's my personal expenses, and it's easier if you're ever audited to say, this is a list of all my personal expenses, and this separate account is a list of all my business expenses.
Okay, great.
So it can really assist in an audit to have the two separate accounts.
I can see how that could be very, very helpful. We're going to take just a quick little break and go to a word from our sponsor today. You are listening to Go Mind Your Business on All Your Business Radio. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Terry Borg with Extreme Marketing Concepts, here today on Go Mind Your Business on All Your Business Radio with my very special guest, Keithel Chauncey of Fresh Legal Perspective. Keithel, before we took our break, we were talking about Tax 1 and apparently Tax 2, and which, one's about the individual and one's more about the business. I find the Department of Revenue to be very confusing on things that they agree and don't agree with. Can we talk a little bit more about why tax is so not so simple for folks?
Yeah, part of the issue is it's a matter of keeping the right paperwork. The Department of Revenue is not out there to take advantage of people in an unfair way. They just want to make sure that they document what actually happened in their records. So occasionally business owners will say, well, this is what happens. I sold this at this amount. And the Department of Revenue says, well, show me any of the supporting documents. And that's usually the first step where the problem comes in is, well, the audit is taking place on a year that was 4 years back. We don't keep records 4 years back, is what most businesses tell me. And I say, okay, well, let's see what we can find to recreate as much as we can to make sure we can document this properly, because it is the business owner's duty to make sure that they document. So we go through and we try and track down exactly what happened and then reconstruct the paperwork that's needed, talk with the accountant who was doing the bookkeeping the 4 years back, see what they still have on their drives. And it's really a relatively large process to recreate everything, but the amount of potential savings makes it well worth it. I mean, a sales tax audit can be asking for a couple $100,000 from a business owner. So taking time out for 60, 70 hours of employee time, yes, it's painful to do, but if it saves potentially $100,000, it's well worth reconstructing the records.
Absolutely. For businesses specifically, I don't know if it matters for LLCs or corporations. Is there a length of time that we need to be holding on to our records?
Typically, I was going to say the rule of thumb I tend to use is about 5 years. Oftentimes, if it's no additional issue, to hold it a little longer. I just say hold it longer. I know a lot of offices have gone paperless.
Right.
And in a paperless office, it takes up maybe an external hard drive to carry an extra 5 years.
Sure.
So they can keep 10 years of records really easily on an external, so there's no good reason not to keep the extra records at that point.
Okay.
But occasionally the audits, I mean, I do regularly see audits that go back 3 years. Occasionally it's closer to 4 after you look at the audit return is filed the year after. I mean, you wait till the April afterwards to file, so it can be a full 3.5 years back, especially if you did an extension or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a long period of time that you should keep records, and usually 5 years is substantial enough. With a business owner, always have a written policy.
Okay.
Just have one in place that says, here's what we do with the records, here's our official policy as far as what's going on. Because if it's something that you are sued in your business and you say, well, we don't have records that far back, and they say, okay, why not? It puts you in a weird position to say, well, we just shredded them all.
Right.
And not to have a policy underlying it that says, no, that's been exactly the policy for the last 15 years, that we keep it for 5 years and then take care of this records.
Okay.
Or this set of records. And it's also going to depend on which type of licenses the people carry. If it's a doctor's office or something like that, they may have different requirements than, say, your standard gas station.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios for each business, and it really needs to be done on a business-to-business basis rather than a broad brush approach. But
okay, got it. Now I know that we have to, a lot of business owners are, and I speak for me, I don't want to say all because I don't want to incorporate everybody into me, but we have to have our annual meeting every year, and if we don't have it by a certain day, I know we have to pay more, even if it's a day late.
Yeah, that one's the annual report for the state of Florida, and it's a huge, huge amount of money. I believe it's
like $300 difference or something.
I was going to say, I want to say $300 or $400 difference for what one day can do. So getting that in on time is important, and you can start months in advance.
Right.
They don't really limit how early you can do it as long as it's after January.
Right. Okay. So these type of, when we talk about shredding documents, is that stuff that needs to come up with our annual meeting, or is that stuff that needs to be documented someplace else? Am I confusing the two? Which, probably
I was going to say, there's a little bit of confusion that goes on. The Florida annual report doesn't necessarily require an annual meeting. Oftentimes, we'll set up the annual meeting for the company around the time that the annual report's being done.
I see.
Just to keep everything consistent and get it done all at once.
That makes sense now.
Yeah, the easier I can make the process for business owners, the happier they are with me. If I can make it to where everything's done very, very easily, they tend to like me a lot better.
Right.
So yeah,
got
my
it.
goal becomes make life easy for my business owners when possible.
Sure. No, I get it. Okay, perfect. So that's very helpful for me. Now, I know that you're a licensed accountant. So are you doing, in addition to doing the business law for your clients, are you doing their tax returns, or are you recommending them out to an accountant, and then you're working with their accountant in their handling their business needs? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I'm
best?
a CPA with the state of Virginia.
Okay.
So I don't have the license to do certified public accountant work in Florida.
Got it.
And I want to let everyone know right now that it's not necessarily a certified public accountant doing your tax work. That's not a requirement for tax work.
Mm-hmm.
But I do recommend my clients to get a CPA. It shows that they've taken all the training, they've been certified as a CPA. It's a heck of a test. I've taken it.
Right.
And I can promise that it's one they had to work really, really hard to learn all the material for. So yeah, I do recommend that my clients go see a separate CPA.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, that's what the CPA does day in and day out. They work with the QuickBooks, they work with the bookkeeping, they work with the 941s, the quarterly returns, and they're wonderful, wonderful at doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of that being, if my client's ever audited, it may be necessary for me to say the CPA missed a sheet of paper.
Right.
My client gave it to him, and it wasn't fraud on my client's part because they tried to comply with all the requirements. If the
Got it.
IRS is saying they committed fraud, it's going to be important for me to go back and say, no, they tried to comply with all the requirements, and it may be that they handed the CPA the paperwork and
Mm-hmm.
the CPA may have misplaced it. Oftentimes, CPAs have very good procedures in line, so I don't want to say that the CPA lost it, but if I'm the CPA,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a scenario where the bookkeeper lost the paperwork, it's really hard for me to turn a finger and point it at myself
Sure.
and say, look at this guy, he lost the paperwork.
Right,
So that's why it's
right.
good for me to have a separate role with my clients than the CPA, and it gives the CPA a bite at fixing the issue with an initial correspondence audit or something like that. The CPA will get involved, and then I get to be a fresh set of eyes at the next step of the appeal of the audit if it doesn't go my client's way at the first stage.
Okay. Oh, well, that sounds like it makes for a nice, smooth process for any type of audit or something that you would need to do with the Department of Revenue or whoever it is.
Yeah, oftentimes the IRS, it's usually the IRS, they'll start it off with a correspondence audit and say, we'd like you to supply this record, and this record.
Mhm.
And your bookkeeper or CPA will sit down and prep it with you and just get it sent off.
Mhm.
And if the IRS is satisfied, everything goes on with life and there's no change and everything's hunky-dory.
Got it.
If it doesn't go your way, oftentimes that's where they call me and say, okay, the audit result came in.
Mhm.
They completely disagreed with everything. So I'll go back and look at the underlying statutes, the rules as far as what the IRS has in place for that, analyze the CPA's or bookkeeper's work from a third-party perspective,
Mhm.
and see where we can work to bolster the case and support it better to try and get the result for my client that my client's looking for. It's
Got
not
it.
always
Okay.
possible if the paperwork doesn't support it.
Right.
I was
right.
going to say we can't just make up things, but if the paperwork supports it, I feel confident that we can put together the paperwork to show the service that we have the documentation we need to get the deductions.
Got it. Okay. So then, Keithel, with all that said, does someone have to start with you from the beginning with their business, or if they're having a problem, they can just pick up the phone and say, I'm being audited. This is my accountant's name. This is his number. Here's my stuff. Can you put all this together so that you can help defend me in court? Is that something that you're able to jump right in on, or does it have to go from a business from get-go?
I was going to say, typically there's a little bit of a transition between an attorney. If they've been working with an attorney who doesn't feel comfortable in the business law arena
Mhm.
and just was trying to help a friend out, I see a lot of those where the attorney says, no, you need to get a business law attorney on this particular piece, someone who works in the business arena.
Mhm.
And they'll reach out and say, okay, contact this attorney and we'll send over the paperwork we've done so far. So I'll work with a lot of attorneys to have a smooth transition.
Got it.
And occasionally someone just doesn't have an attorney. And yeah, that's just pick up the phone, give me a call. It can be at any point in the business process. Or if they have an attorney that just doesn't feel comfortable or they don't feel comfortable with, they'll call me. And I'll try and get in touch with the attorney and just make the transition as smooth as possible. And the same goes with even bookkeepers and things like that.
Right.
They're my friends. They're our allies in the process of an audit. So I definitely try and have a really close relationship with whoever my client's working with on any level.
Sure. Okay, great. I know that you're involved in an organization called BNI. Last year, you were the president of your BNI chapter up in Lutz, the Platinum Group. Are you involved in any other networking organizations as
I
well?
am. Yeah,
Okay.
BNI is an amazing organization. I encourage everyone to come out, visit. If they want to visit my chapter or anything, they're more than welcome to. I'm also a member of the Financial Service Professionals. It's Society of Financial Service Professionals, and it's a group of people with higher designations in the financial realm. It could be attorneys, it could be CPAs, it could be investment advisors, CFP, certified financial planners. So there's a lot of different designations that fall into that, but I'm active with the group because it gives a broad spectrum of education to all the members from different perspectives. I see
Right.
CPA's perspectives, I see
Sure.
the certified financial planner perspective, and it really helps me just get the broad view on behalf of my clients.
Okay. Great. So you can work with financial planners as well. I assume, I assume that from a financial planning point of view, that's where you're really getting into some of those buy-sell type agreements to set up for your clients in case, of the 4Ds that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, I work really closely with the financial planners on that piece especially because they'll be the ones getting the disability policies in place if there's going to be a disability buyout funded by insurance. They'll be working on the buyout policy in the case of death, and they'll have all the figures as far as what I need to know when drafting the agreement. And occasionally, if one of the pieces is someone exiting the business, they'll want to use a different type of policy that has a cash payout to the business in the case that they exit before death or before disability. So there's a lot of different pieces that financial professionals and I work together on when it comes to buy-sells.
Got it. Okay. What if somebody sets their business up maybe as a sole proprietorship or as a partnership before they realize that, really made a mistake and really would like to change my designation to an LLC or a corporation? Is that some things that you can help some folks with? And is there ever an opportunity maybe to form a sole proprietorship or a partnership?
It's definitely something that I can help them out with. When it comes to forming a sole proprietorship, first and foremost, I don't recommend using entities that don't have a liability shield. Namely because if you're operating your business and something goes wrong within your business, your personal assets could be on the plate for that. Specifically, say you're working as a plumber or something like that, and you send your guys out to do a job, and the pipe breaks and floods the person's house. Yes, that's really bad. You'll have business insurance that covers part of it, but say it's a bigger issue than that. You don't want the person to be able to come after your brokerage accounts or things like that you've been just using as play money on the side. You don't want people to be able to go after what's personally yours. So that's one of the reasons I say let's get an actual business entity in place, an LLC or a corporation, follow all the formalities, make sure it's run like a proper business. You keep all the accounts separate, you don't commingle any funds, you hold any required meetings, and you really run it like a real business. That way, if something does go wrong and there's a large liability, your personal life isn't at risk as often. Occasionally with attorneys and things like that, the malpractice does attach to us individually.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little bit different depending on each field. So I don't want to say that there's one rule that fits all, but a good attorney or CPA will go through a lot of these details with you and just kind of explain some of the baseline options.
Sure.
And work to make sure they accomplish your goals.
Got it. Okay, great. Terrific. Have you, are there situations, where people can't get out of the agreements that they're in, that they have to dissolve their company and start a fresh one if they're stuck in some sort of partnership agreement?
When it comes to a partnership agreement, usually we can work around it because the partners want to just go to a different type of entity. So yeah, a lot of people end up in a default partnership, and occasionally they'll formalize that with a partnership agreement. But more often than not, when they realize that we need documents underlying this, they'll just switch over to oftentimes an LLC.
Okay.
Because you can continue with the partnership taxation that you were used to before. It's the Form 1065. And
Okay.
I was going to say it's not a big transition because they were partnership tax before, they're partnership tax after.
Right.
We'll use a agreement that mimics some of the partnership terms that they had in place in advance and really try and make it as close to their goals as humanly possible.
Right. Okay. Great. Other than teaching up at the college and sharing your knowledge with the non-for-profits, are you teaching anywhere else at the current time and sharing your knowledge with others?
I was going to say, in
That
a
takes up a lot
formal
of
manner,
time.
no. I have nephews and nieces that ask me a lot of random questions, and I love
Right.
sitting with. But no, I don't have any any other ones on the plate right now. I think a couple, 2 or 3 is enough.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Are there any types of businesses that you're currently looking for to help you grow your company?
One of the ones I do enjoy working with the most is the formation of the nonprofits and the nonprofit foundations. They're really a joy to work with because they're out to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really nice to sit down with people who have that in mind as their goal. Their essentially business purpose is going out and serving others and doing what's right for other people. And that just makes for the most rewarding experience when you're helping them achieve that goal.
Sure. Oh, I can imagine. And I'm sure that keeps you pretty busy working with the non-for-profit leadership group. Hard to say.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, I try and promote the group at any opportunity I can, just because what they do is similar to what I do in that they help nonprofits succeed.
Sure.
And they give them the training and the resources they need to help them succeed. So yeah, I try and promote it whenever possible because the more successful the nonprofits are, the more people they're helping.
Sure. No, that makes terrific sense. You're listening to Go Mind Your Business with Terry Bork, and I'm speaking with Keithel Chauncey of Fresh Legal Perspective. If you have any questions for Keithel, you can check out his website by going to www.businesslawyertampa.com. So, Keithel, is there any other questions or things that we didn't cover today that you'd like to share with our listeners? Or
one of the hot topics I've seen recently is as people, it seems like the real estate industry starting to bounce back. I see a lot more investors coming by nowadays and a lot more people selling properties and trying to do investments in properties. And that's one of the things that there are special advantages people need to know about going into that. When you're going in with, say, an S corporation or something like that, but you're borrowing a lot of money and you expect to more or less have paper losses for the first few years, a lot of investors in real estate will have the depreciation on the property, which gives them a paper loss in the first few years. And with an S corporation, you can't necessarily have enough money on paper put in to write off those losses.
Right.
So there's actually a way you can set it up with an LLC that it's partnership taxation. And if you have what's called recourse debt, which means you signed on it personally, that could increase your basis to the point that you can write off more losses.
Got it.
So it's a really neat structure for people going out and investing in properties and using an LLC as the entity that they're doing it through. It's an amazing option available to help them write off more and get more tax benefits in the short term.
Got it.
So that's one of the really cool structures that's become a lot more relevant as real estate starts to come back, because it really wasn't a big thing 2 years ago.
Right. No, it wasn't. We were all lucky to hold our heads above the water 2 years ago.
Exactly.
So terrific. And I'm just curious, how did you get into tax law at all? So it's an interesting area that you chose to run your business.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a story. When I was little, I grew up on a farm out in Zephyr Hills, and my dad ended up having, we mentioned earlier, the independent contractor employees and the setup there. And as a small farm, he'd hired a company or a man to bring in a crew to do all the work on the farm as far as the picking, packaging, shipping, things like that, to come in and just get things together. And the IRS came in later and said, well, you didn't do it right. These are actually employees.
Got it.
And my dad, I mean, he was a farmer. He didn't particularly know all about the legal system, and he really got bulldozed by the whole process. He didn't provide the documentation that he would have needed to that would have supported his claim that they're independent contractors. And ultimately, he lost relatively large to the IRS there.
Wow.
And I think I was about 10 years old then. And I remember that, we couldn't really go out to eat very often. That was a very, very rare luxury. And oftentimes ended up eating with my grandma, things like that. My dad at that point was a single dad, and he was stressed out about the whole process. And it was just really hard on the family. The IRS ended up repossessing the farm and mortgaging it back to him, as I understand from my dad.
Right.
And to this day, he still has the mortgage. And I mean, I saw the pain that my family went through, the skimping on providing extra gifts at Christmas, things like that. And I feel like if my dad had had a good tax attorney at the time, it would have just made life a lot easier for my family. We could have provided the documentation that was needed, won the case, and effectively really just made life easier for a struggling family. So I like the tax area because I get the opportunity to help people show that they did comply with tax laws and really make their family lives hopefully a little better from my service.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, speaking from experience, I know that is very, very, very true. You've been listening to Terry Bork at Go Mind Your Business. And it's been my great pleasure today to have on our program Keith Chauncey of Fresh Legal Perspective. Again, if you would like to speak with Keith directly about your business or areas where there might be holes or how he could help you, you can pick up the phone and give him a call at 813-448-1042, or you can go to his website at www.businesslawyertampa.com. And Keith, I do want to thank you very much for being on our program today. It was amazing listening to you and hearing how we can all better our businesses.
Yeah, it was my pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And if you're looking at getting your business exposed to more customers who are looking for your goods and services, please give Extreme Marketing Concepts a call at 813-863-1452. My name is Terry Bork. This is Go Mind Your Business on All Your Business Radio, and I wish you an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you next time right here. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Go Mind Your Business with Terry Bork, presented by Extreme Marketing Concepts. If you want to drive more traffic, dominate the market, and crush your competition, find out how by visiting our website, www.extrememarketingconcepts.com. And join Terry next time for another episode of Go Mind Your Business.